But again, I appreciate you taking time and joining us today. Just a little background on us. The Asian American Group has been around for about 20 years now.
Okay.
Mike Vaswani has been our president for the last decade or so. What caused you to run for this particular race, which is not all that, nobody knows what a controller does anyway. But why are you running for state controller at this point in time?
Let me tell you what I told the active Republican women a few minutes ago. Growing up as a small town boy in Illinois in the 50s and 60s, I dreamed of being Nevada controller. Now,
who didn't?
Who didn't? If you believe that, there are some bridges I can sell you also, okay? Very seriously, I'm doing this because I think it's the next natural step, natural progression in my public service. As my flyer shows, I spent a term in the Assembly. I've now been on the Board of Regents for 8 years. I have a lifelong record of public service. Half of my professional and management career has been in entrepreneurial small business and half in public service and higher education. So I really value and respect that. And I thought, what's the best thing I could do? What niche could I fill? And I'm a numbers and policy nerd, especially a numbers nerd, okay? And for the last 8 years on the Board of Regents, I've been the most active member of the Audit Committee, which I've chaired 2 years, of the Budget and Finance Committee, I chaired 2 years and vice chair once, and of the Investment Committee, overseeing now $1 billion in funds. I submit that that's really good preparation for being the chief fiscal officer, which is what the controller is, especially audit and budget and finance. In graduate school at Stanford, I took public finance and taxation policy, among other things, and I submit also that's good preparation. I have a law degree, don't hold that against me. I've testified 150 times as an expert witness, and as my flyer shows on the back, my specialty is doing what the controller should do in addition to the nuts and bolts of taking good care of your money, and I will do that. But in addition, the controller needs to provide the public with the information that will allow you to determine whether your tax dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively. That's what I do best. Just as this one example here, the graph is way too busy, and I'll simplify it, but it shows the following. Contrary to all the narratives you've heard that we've starved public services, we've cut taxes and just cut regulation and cut, as one of my regent colleagues once said, in the last 20 years, the fact is that state general fund spending, after you adjust for population growth, after you adjust for inflation, state general fund spending on a real per person basis has gone up 30%. Mm-hmm. The incomes of Nevada families and businesses, the people who, like you, who pay the burden of that spending, went up a little and came back down so that the net is 10%. So the burden of state government is 20% higher than it was 20 years ago. I think that's the kind of information that people need to know. I'm not taking a position one way or the other on whether we should fund K-12 to this level or that level. I think we should be looking for, education is so important, but we should look always first for the no-cost and low-cost policy reforms and practices reforms that will make it most effective. But as we have these debates about public services, about tax levels, I think what we need are the facts and the numbers. One final thought in that regard, if I were controller today, up on the controller's state website would be an analysis of the margins tax and the damage that will do to Nevada, to small businesses, to jobs. And when I am controller a year from now, we'll be putting up a new finance, accounting, information technology system, and it will have the state checkbook online in a user-searchable format so that when people want to know how much John Paris is getting from the state of Nevada, they can go type in his name and a list of the checks will appear on the screen.
Oh,
Fantastic.
I don't like that, sir.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I work for the
the
state.
list of
I don't
those
like
checks
that.
is already on the screen right now. I'll tell you that
Fantastic.
I always pick out the guy who isn't getting anything for
much.
that.
You could have picked out darn near any one of us.
What you have just said that really clarifies something up about the education. I always thought, hey, why is it so many politicians always said not enough money, need more money for the school, number of counties.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to step on your question there. The reason is because they're afraid of the teachers' union. I'm not afraid of the teachers' union and the administrators' union. I've been fighting with them for 12 years since my time in the assembly, and I'm willing to stand up to them and tell the facts. Another reason is, quite frankly, it's too much laziness. You actually have to work hard to talk about what things we can do that are low cost and no cost reforms in policies and practices. And it's not as easy as saying, gee, what we need to do is throw more money at it. You have to do some research. And I've done that, by the way. As you can tell from the picture of me and the Blondes, my wife and daughter, I have a real interest in not just higher education, which I've been involved in all my life in various capacities. I taught at Western Nevada College, etc., but in K-12. When our daughter was ready to go to school, we talked with parents from all the private schools in Carson City and a representative sample of parents from the public schools. And the same thing with teachers. We actually found teachers from the public school system who would talk frankly to us. And to a person, they said, if Bethlehem Lutheran will take her, that's the place to go in Carson City. And so when they said they would take her, we paid the extra money and sent her there because her education is the most important thing. Now, when I say we paid the extra money, actually the Carson schools, like Nevada schools in general, the public schools spend about $11,000 per student per year, more or less. Bethlehem spends $8,000 a year, and people are dying to get in because it's a better education, okay? So it's not the amount of money, it's what you do, getting money to the classroom, not sending it to the administration, and that sort of thing. And I've dealt with the same thing in higher ed. I know that's a long answer, but it truly is not just about throwing more money, and it's usually not at all about throwing more money at it. It's about accountability reforms, about parental choice, about accountability to the parents on the part of the school, that sort of thing. I think charter schools are a good innovation. All kinds of school choice is a step forward. And teacher pay that's keyed to the progress of students. You know, if you have a fourth grade teacher that has a class that's in the 25th percentile nationally coming in, and after she's finished with them, they're up to the 40th percentile. You say, well, gee, they're only in the 40th percentile. Yeah, but a year ago, they were in the 25th, and she's done a great job to bring them up, and she should get recognized for that pay. But if she gets them in the 90th percentile, and at the end of the year, they're down to the 75th percentile, she hasn't done a great job, okay? And she shouldn't get merit pay. So those are the kinds of things we need to look at.
Well, one of the many jobs or duties that you would have as controller is the collection of the state's debts.
Yes.
Now, some numbers, since you are a numbers nerd, I think is the term you use, a numbers and policy nerd. One of the numbers that's been thrown out there is we only collect 28%. Nevada, only collects on 28% of its debts. However, in all fairness, that has gone up from 11%.
That's right.
Prior to your predecessor.
That's right.
Taking control. What specific ideas do you have to continue that trend? Because we all know more money coming in is a good thing.
I will continue to pursue the policies that she has. This is one area in which, I'll be frank, I can criticize her in certain areas for not doing enough, especially on information. In this area, going from 11 to 28 is a gain, and I'll continue those policies, and I'll look for new policies, okay? But I don't have a magic bullet, because most of the time when you're talking about debts that haven't been collected by the state, you're talking about people who've either left the state or insolvent or whatever. You're not going to get to 99% recovery on those dollars. So I will continue those policies and try to take it from 28 to 40 and onward. I won't hold out any false hope that we're going to get to 75 or 80 or anything like that. But in other areas, I will make changes.
Well, just based upon your preliminary look at the controller's office, what number do you think is a reasonable goal? I mean, obviously 80 is not reasonable, 99 is definitely not. You had thrown out 40. I don't know if you have a specific goal in mind.
I'd like to get it to 50. Again, that's one function. The controller takes in the money, processes all the invoices in and out, pays out the money, collects the debts, accounts for it all those ministerial chief fiscal officer functions, right? But again, as I said earlier, I look forward to coming back a year from now when I am controller, or even sooner, and reporting to you what things we are doing, because that's a difference I'm going to make. I'm going to get that information, numerical policy and practices out to the public. And I might say this, the one thing that has some hope for improving the debt collection is what I said about we have an obsolete financial accounting information technology system. It's 16 years old. It wasn't great when we got it 16 years ago. It was okay. Those things have a life of about 8 years. She should have started this 8 years ago when she was the new controller, and by the way, when the state was a little more flush with cash. But in any event, they've had the benchmarking study to see where we are. We're doing terrible. Our staffing levels are high. Our costs are high in finance and accounting, in human resources and information technology, and in procurement, all those related things. So maybe with a new, really good, well-developed finance and accounting IT system, we'll be able to run down more of that debt collection and get it up to 40 to 50.
Ballpark, how much would that type of a capital improvement require?
This is another area where I've got some experience, because the system of higher ed has implemented a wide-ranging student record, faculty and staff record, and all functions information technology system called Integrate. We're actually in the, what is it, 5th year now or so of rolling it out among our 8 institutions and the various functions, and it has been well into the mid 8 figures for us. Now, working with the rest of the state agencies, budget and finance, and the other state agencies who will be supplying this, this system is not quite as ambitious as that, but I would expect it to get into the 8-figure range.
Pricey.
Well, I will say this. One of the things that we can do with the new system, especially linking procurement, is make sure that we give real-time feedback to the people who are paying the bills, so that every bill gets paid on the day it's due or the day before, and not the day after and not a month before. If you pay it the day after, a lot of times you incur a 1.5% or 2% penalty or a fee. We want to avoid those at all costs. If you pay it a month early, that's interest on your accounts that you foregone. This is the kind of thing with a new modern IT system, I'm sure you all know, that you can program in and make sure that all the agencies pay their bills exactly on time. That'll save a lot of money too, especially in the long run.
Okay. Other questions? I realize this is a very specialized, hyper-technical position here that we're talking about, so we don't have the same, hey, what do you think about gun control? We don't have those fun issues to talk about.
Oh, you don't think controller is sexy?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, that's, yeah, I work for the state, of course, long period of time. It's a very good thing, transparency
Mm-hmm.
is a very good thing. You know, from yesterday, for the southern sector, south of Nevada,
Yes.
it's already started in the northern sector, and they are trying to see how it will work for us. In the Department of Motor Vehicles, we are going to have what is called a queue-less. You don't have a number. You have a text on your phone. We started yesterday from Henderson office. They started here.
Okay.
And it works very well. So everybody can stay at home, and you will be told you need to come to the DMV in 1 hour's time. So technology is improving, like you said.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
You just text your number, and you have been called.
Yes.
And that's the technology that we are going to be far in California after the system works. Wonderful. And to tell you, sir, one of my friends is the chief information officer.
Yes.
I think he was selected as the most outstanding guy in Southern Nevada. His name is Mukund Vaidilingam, CCN.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
When I was in the assembly 12 years ago, there were the big sexy things like the gross receipts tax, which is the father of today's margins tax, and I'm proud that I was one of the mean 15 that stopped that, okay? But then there were lesser exciting things, but really important things like you're talking about. And one of them was the hours and hours queues and waits at DMV. We've automated that, and we've continued to improve it. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do throughout state government. Let me put on my economist hat for a moment and remind you that every business has to do better every year in terms of productivity gains, using people and technology and capital better and more effectively every year. And the reason you have to, of course, is because you're facing market competition. You don't just go out and requisition your revenues the way the state agencies do by saying, well, here's our budget and it's 8–10% higher than last year. You can only get revenues equal to whatever you can make in the market, and therefore you have to exercise what we don't exercise so well in the public sector, including education, and that's good cost management. And you're giving an example where we have done that. We need to do that in every agency across the board throughout the state. Yesterday, when the Board of Regents voted on this year's budget proposal, I asked the Chancellor specifically. I had gone through this thing in great detail, and I asked more questions than everybody else put together, very precise questions, but I asked him about one thing. I said, is there any place in this budget where we show productivity gains and technology benefits quantified like 1 or 2% cost savings for the year? And he was candid and frank, and he said, no, there's not. We need to do exactly that at every agency. If you give the agencies a budget constraint, instead of saying just tell us how much you want and we'll pass that along to the governor and the legislature, if you give them a budget constraint, say, okay, let's reduce that by 2% for productivity gains, they will do what private sector managers do and go out and find a way. That's their duty to the taxpayers. That's our duty to the taxpayers and the voters and the broad public interest, and that's what I'm about.
Well,